By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Welcome back to the Hog Style. No, this is not Sean. It's a new host, the big dog, top dog. It's like, nah, I'm just playing. But this is Jamal. Here with another episode of Hog Style, the finale for the Redskins season. I wish we could say we're in the battle of playoff contention, fellas, but unfortunately, that has sailed a few weeks ago. In the meantime, I got Steve with me and Alex with me. Steve, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm still suffering with my sore throat thing here. I will survive. Am I the only one that's excited about 8-8? I think I'm the only one.
No. I know plenty of people who are excited about 8-8. I mean, just sitting around listening to sports talk radio all week because absolutely nothing's going on, in the offices this week.
Or with the Wizards.
Yeah. So it's all just, hey, let's talk about 8-8 all day long on sports radio.
So people care,
yes.
And that makes me feel a little better because I get the sense that nobody cares, but obviously I don't have my hand on the pulse of the fan base right now.
And I care. I will be thrilled if we can get it.
And clearly we know that's Alex talking, man. Alex, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm still kind of recovering from my jump up to New York and back in 48 hours, but
48 hours.
Yeah. I drove up, Christmas Eve and drove back Christmas right after dinner. So
right after dinner. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I had to work.
How long was the drive?
When you live in Texas, you can drive 4 hours and still be in the state.
Yeah.
How long was the drive?
What is the drive? About 5 hours up and back, or 5 hours each way.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You are a trooper, so I'll tell you that much. I can't be me.
I've only done it 1,000 times in my life at this point.
Look, I like I said, it can't be me, man. And you had to work the next day.
Yep.
I probably would have took off, but I mean, if you did it that many times, then it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Steve, I just want to comment right quick. I don't know. I can't say too many people are excited about 8-8. For me personally, it's kind of strange because you want to see them do well. You want to see them win every time they step on the field. So it's like you're hoping they finish strong. You don't want to see them go to 7-9. You want to see the 8-8. But it's like, are you really excited, or are you just? It's just that's just the fan in you that you want to see your team win. I mean, I don't know.
For me, I mean, it's something to play for. It means this game has value. I think it's important for the sake of the franchise to see the team not have a losing season. Because in my eyes, it kind of means we've graduated from being a total debacle to mediocre. And not that I really particularly want to celebrate mediocrity, but I do celebrate the idea that we're no longer the laughingstock of the NFL.
Sure.
And if we can have if it takes 3 seasons in a row of 2 good and 1 8-8 to kind of get away from that, I'm all for it. And that's really the real reason why I'm not excited, but at least I'm paying attention to the 8-8 possibility.
I mean, I've heard multiple people say this. We've never had 3 years in a row where the team hasn't lost 10 games since Dan Snyder took over. So, we're already improving pretty well in that perspective.
Well, let me ask you guys this. I'm gonna ask both of you guys. It don't matter who answers first, but
Go ahead.
just to ask this question, does 3 straight non-losing seasons really mean something for the next season? Like, does it really mean anything in terms of how the outlook in terms of next season, or does it just say, okay, well, we wasn't a total mess in 2017. Let's see how we fare in 2018. Does it really mean we're destined for another at least mediocre season? Or I mean, I don't think it guarantees anything, honestly.
I was gonna say, well, I would just say it gives you something to build off of, Jamal. That's what I see as the key. If you don't do it, if you decide, hey, we're going to blow this up completely, get rid of the quarterback, get rid of the coach, do whatever crazy thing this team's done historically after an average season like this, then yeah, it doesn't mean anything if you make some heavy-handed radical changes. But if you're smart, and if you're like, okay, we were 500 with a bad season because of all the injuries and all the scheduling issues, how can we make ourselves better? because what it tells me is the cupboard isn't bare for this team. As rough as this season's felt at this time, there's stuff in there we can use. We have some talent that we can build off of. It's just a question of, do we have the guys who can do it?
For me, it's more of a big picture thing. It's what are the expectations for the franchise? Because the truth of the matter is, this team, particularly this year, has so many free agents coming up that a significant portion of this locker room is going to change. You know what? There may be 20 new guys next year at least.
Sure, but that's
and
every
so
year,
it's not
right?
so much. Yeah, but this year they actually have a lot of free agents. For me, it's more an expectation of where this franchise belongs. Like I don't know. A couple shows ago, we were laughing about the idea that there's been 3 Star Wars movies since the Cleveland Browns have won more than 2 games.
Right.
I can't remember who was on the show or who even said that, but
I think I said that because I saw that on Twitter a lot.
Maybe so, but that's a debacle, a true debacle. Right. The Indianapolis Colts have become a total debacle. And there's teams like that. The Redskins used to be a total debacle, and to me, a team that fights through what they fought through this year to end up 8-8, coming off of 2 winning seasons, I think it sets a higher bar for the franchise in front of the rest of the NFL. That's what it means to me.
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of wins and losses, and I'm glad we were actually talking about these in the 8 wins, trying to get to 8-8. I think the first thing we was going to talk about is the tweet that I mentioned to you, Steve. The Hawks side count. We know who's it ran by. You tweeted something earlier today, I believe, or maybe yesterday. I'm not sure.
It's entirely possible that I've forgotten this,
yeah.
So please run it by me again.
Yeah, so this picture was screenshotted, and tweeted out because of, and without context, by the way, I'm not sure what you meant, so I'm giving you this opportunity. But it was tweeted out and basically, ran across every Redskins fan you could possibly imagine, and everybody had their reaction. So I'm gonna go ahead and read it to you, and then I'll let you go ahead and explain what you meant by it. So it said, it's like folks don't realize that Cousins lost literally all of his offensive weapons and 3/5 of his starting O-line. He has faults, for sure, but the numbers he's put up this year are pretty amazing considering who he's working with right now. Team win and losses isn't everything. Now, what was highlighted by the person who tweeted this out was the last sentence, which was, team win and losses isn't everything.
Okay.
So
let me explain what I was talking about there. That either was a response to or something I tweeted out immediately after reading a conversation in which the tweeters were assessing, we're laying the blame for the Redskins' win-loss record on Cousins and saying, well, Cousins can only win 9, is only a 9-7 quarterback. He's only 10-6 quarterback. And I think they were assessing his performance in terms of the quarterback's win-loss record like he was a pitcher, like he's a Major League Baseball pitcher. So my point with that isn't that win-losses aren't important. Winning and the only reason you play to win the game, in the words of Tony Dungy. My point is that I think it's a little short-sighted to assess a quarterback's performance solely on the win-loss record of the team, because a quarterback does a lot of things. The defense may really suck. Dan Fouts is a Hall of Fame quarterback, had an amazing offense back in the early 80s, and the defense was atrocious.
Right.
And that's why they never won a Super Bowl. And in the case of Kirk Cousins, my point was, the Redskins were 10-6 and 9-7, and now they're 7-8 currently. But it's not all on him. He's had a pretty darn amazing season, considering he's lost every receiver, every running back, 3/5 of his offensive line, and yet he's on a pace to pass for over 4,000 yards. With a quarterback rating of almost 100. I don't want to just blame him just for the record. I don't want to blame him alone for the record. That's what I meant for that.
Okay.
By that, there's other data points that are more important to me.
Right.
Okay,
if you're going to say wins and losses are on the quarterback, then Sonny Jurgensen doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, because his win-loss record is literally 1 game over 500 for his career.
Now, Jamal, you brought it up, so what do you think? What's your opinion about that?
Well, I seen the tweet, but I didn't. I knew first and foremost, I knew we was doing the show today, so I wasn't even going to think. I wasn't going to think anything about it until I heard from you, because I know for a fact, you don't. You personally are not a person that, um, people on Twitter they use the word "stan" a lot, but you're not really a Kirk. You're not a Kirk stan. You like Kirk Cousins as a quarterback, but you're not someone who is um, extremely defensive of him, or someone who protects him by any means.
No,
So
Steve was in Camp RG3 for a long time. People forget how long Steve was an RG3 fanboy.
I still think the Redskins mishandled him, but
Right,
let's not go
exactly.
there.
If you were in any camp, that was your camp.
I was Team RG3 for a long time. That's true.
Yeah. So I mean, me personally, I understand what you were saying. Well, I understand what you are saying, not what you were saying. I wasn't sure because I knew for a fact it was lacking context, and that's what people on Twitter do nowadays. They don't really care, the story behind the tweet. They just see the tweet and they see it as itself. So they thought you were saying team wins and losses don't mean anything when it comes to Kirk Cousins. And clearly, if you say Kirk Cousins and wins and losses don't mean anything, then clearly, from the eyes of people who do not like Kirk Cousins or who have a problem with him, for whatever reason, they will take that and say it's unbelievable the type of fan that this person is.
Right.
So, like I said, I agree with what you're saying. I think the only thing that I would have said is, the numbers are impressive. However, you know, within those numbers doesn't show the type of mistakes that he's made. Like you mentioned he has his faults, but I just would have left that part out, and more so elaborated on, the issue that you had in terms of the team winning losses. So if that makes any sense, I would have went more in depth on why wins and losses really doesn't matter, and not just about, his stats, because, there's ways around to describe his level of play without mentioning the numbers that he's put up. So
I mean, that's fair enough.
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the faults, I mean, the guy has faults. He's not good deep.
Right.
He tends to miss that. He checks down unnecessarily sometimes. He's really good in the short to intermediate range, but I think he relies too much on yak, on third downs in particular. And I think his worst fault as a quarterback, honestly, is his deep ball. He misses that a lot, and he can improve in that area. I mean, the guy isn't perfect, but if we have a quarterback who's going to post fourth, I think there's 31 other teams, and put it this way, there's 31 other teams in the NFL that if they had a quarterback who's passing for 4,200 yards and has a quarterback rating hovering around 100, they'd sign him up every time.
Right.
And somehow the Redskins have somehow bungled this, whereas every other team would sign up for that in a heartbeat if they had it.
I mean, I agree, 100% honestly. I wouldn't expect it. If you were to ask me in 2015, like if Kirk was to put up these type of numbers and he was going to be this type of quarterback for you, would you sign him now? And would you make sure to pay him well now? I would have made sure to do that, and I would have expected the Redskins to do that. But coming into 2018, when you realize he's on the second franchise tag, and things have went south in terms of negotiations, who knows, they may pick back up. But in terms of, in regards to right now and the situation that they're facing in terms of the $30+ million franchise tag, yeah, I wouldn't expect it. I shouldn't have expected the Redskins to do this, and they did exactly that. So, I mean.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's just mind-boggling. I mean, we spent countless hours talking about this on this show.
Right.
And we'll spend countless more hours talking about it, but it's just truly mind-boggling.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I think even after he's gone, if he goes, that's going to be – we'll be talking about it 3 years later. You know what I mean?
Particularly if we sign up for the Ryan Fitzpatrick era.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Or something like that, next year. And Kirk Cousins
Bring
is
back Chase
winning
Daniel.
a division. Yeah. Well, and, if Kirk Cousins is in Denver winning a Super Bowl and we're at 5-11 with Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm, things are going to go south
If
fast.
if Kirk Cousins goes somewhere else and wins a Super Bowl, does Dan Snyder or Bruce Allen commit seppuku or whatever it is? And what is the Japanese
the
ritual
Japanese
suicide?
form of
Yeah.
probably.
Well, I
Probably
know
so.
for a fact. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I think Dan Snyder would drink himself to death before he'd commit suicide.
Right. Well, same thing.
I'm about to say we're on the same page. I was going to talk about Dan Snyder, so
Yeah.
you said it for me. But so yeah, speaking of Kirk, man, and other teams, and possibly playing for the Broncos, this is probably, I can't say probably, but it's a high possibility or a good possibility that Sunday may be his last game as a Washington Redskin. You know, it's been what 6 seasons with the Redskins with Cousins, 3 as a starting quarterback. Times flew by. Didn't really realize it until you realized that he came here in 2012. But he's only been here for 3 years as a starter. Coming up on his last game, I guess the overall thoughts before we dig a little deep into it. But I guess Alex will go ahead and give you the first turn. But what's your overall thoughts on Cousins in his last game heading into Week 17?
I mean, what?
Or possibly last game, excuse me.
You just kind of hope. I mean, I don't think any of us really want this to be his last game. I'm safe in saying that, right? Like, we'd all hope in the ideal situation he could come back and they figure out the contract situation, all that. But if this is his last game, you just got to hope that he balls out. I want to see him air it out against the Giants. The Giants' secondary is terrible. I want to see him put up, a 400-yard game. I'll give you one little stat to watch for. He's got 99 touchdowns right now. Mark Rippon is right ahead of him in the Redskins record book at 101, I think. So if Kirk can beat Mark Rippon and get into the top 5 all time for the team, that would be a lot of, a little nice icing on top of the cake kind of situation for him, I think, at least, history stats wise. It's going to be bittersweet, I think, for a lot of fans. I think you will see that, watching social media and stuff after the game.
Yeah, I mean it'll be bittersweet in that we improbably found a legitimate starting quarterback in the 4th round of the NFL draft in a guy who was never supposed to be anything more than a backup. And he's a guy who's put up numbers that has not been seen in Redskins land for 30 years.
Right.
Or 25 years, rather. He is Mark Rippon reborn in terms of numbers, basically. And it'll be sad to see the team let somebody like that go, if that is in fact what happens. So, I mean, I'm not going to cry over him. And, if he moves to Denver or Jacksonville or somewhere else, Godspeed and good luck, and I'm done with you. And we're going to move on to whoever the next Redskins quarterback is. At least I will.
Yeah, I mean, we'll all have to. That's what happens.
I'm not going to be if what you're asking is, am I going to be sentimental about it? No. I think it's dumb to let him go, but if he goes, he goes, and we'll move on, and we'll talk about the next quarterback, next year.
Well, here's one thing, and that's a good point in terms of, sentimental. There is going to be fans out here, and I remember one person in particular, and it was hilarious. I don't even know the fan, but he mentioned RG3 on
Twitter. I know what you're about. I think I know what you're about to say. Go describe this.
He mentioned RG3 on Twitter. I think it was a video. And he showed him, I think, his jerseys that he signed or his pictures or something like that that he had of RG3, and was bawling tears on video. A grown man bawling tears on video, talking about how he missed RG3. And he added them on Twitter, and I guess RG3, I think he retweeted it because that he was very emotional over it. So I think he said something to him, or he retweeted him or something like that, which actually made it worse because you're a grown man crying on Twitter.
Right.
You're a grown man crying on Twitter about a guy you don't know.
Yeah. So
right.
That made it even worse. But it meant a lot to him. So what I say about Kirk Cousins is, if this is his last game, we won't really know until March. So I think that's around where the franchise tag deadline is. The thing is, you don't really know how you're going to feel per se until that moment happens. Like, for example, for me, I don't personally, I can move on from a quarterback. I can move on from any player if, we decide to let him go. Whether or not I think it's a mistake or not is a different story. But I can move on from a player. Because it's always about the team. I can always, appreciate somebody or, hope he does well somewhere else. However, when it comes to Cousins, because of the fact that, if you think about it, he is emotionally rattled and affected so many fans and media members who aren't fans, but they have to cover the team. He's emotionally rattled them, and all of us. So whether or not we get sentimental or not, that it may happen to a lot of people because of the fact that, the things that they did for him. For example, the stands on Twitter, the people who really love Kirk Cousins, they're going to feel some type of way if we let him go. The people who
you'll see another grown man crying on a video when it happens.
Yeah, there's going to be some Team Kirk charter members out there posting crying videos.
Right.
There's no doubt about it.
And then you're going to have some people who can't stand Cousins who can't wait to see who signs him and can't wait to see how much money they have. I mean, how much money he signed for, to follow him his entire season next year to see what happens against whoever they play.
Right, and they will be, just like they're doing now. They'll be doing the same thing where, he threw an interception. Look, ha ha ha, we were right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that roots for the team? I mean, I root for whoever is the Redskin. I'm going to root for them to do well. And if they move on, they move on, and I really don't care.
Well, I mean, here's my thing. Generally, I'm with you, but there are guys who you'll have on your team. Like, think back to Alfred Morris. I still can't root against Alfred Morris, even though he's a Cowboy. Like, he was such a good
me neither,
guy.
but I haven't followed him.
No, I don't follow him.
I'm not
but
keeping up with Alfred Morris every week.
Like if he wasn't in Dallas, I would hope for him to make a Pro Bowl. I'll put it that way. And I think with
Kirk,
point. You get the same. Like, this is just a good guy who he's getting screwed over by the team at some level. So
well, and he's a Kirk. Look, Kirk's a nice guy. He's a complete nerd. Which is endearing to a lot of people.
Right.
He's got the kid, he's got the wife, he's kind of got it all, and people like the guy, and I don't blame him. But all the same for me, it's if you're gone, you're gone, and we'll talk about the.
Okay, so let's say he goes to Denver, Steve, and next year he's in the Super Bowl, not against the Redskins. You're not going to root for him?
Probably will.
Depends on who Denver's playing.
All right. I mean, I said not the Redskins.
I know, but I mean, I tend to root for the NFC if the Redskins aren't in it. As long as it's not like Dallas or, as long as it's not an NFC East team. But if it's like the Saints,
sure.
Say, I'm going to probably root for the NFC. I just don't have a lot of sentimentality about these players once they leave.
Okay.
For me, it's all about the laundry. There's only a very limited few. Alfred Morris might have been one of them. Like if Kobe Bryant had ever left the Lakers,
sure.
That would have been tough. I would have rooted for him because he's, one of my favorite players. But other than a handful at most, I really don't care. I'm done.
Okay.
You're gone. I'm done.
I mean, I guess that's a fair take, That's fair. Can't say nothing much about it. Because I personally, I got some players that I root for after they leave. So it's, it is what it is. Just like what you said, Alex, with Alf. I hope he does well, but at the same time, it's like I understand why we let him go. So it is what it is. We don't have to worry about Kirk much longer in terms of his last game. We have another person that we have to talk about, potentially Eli Manning's last game.
Yeah.
He's a person he's been there since 2004. He's only missed one game, and that was the game he got benched this year
for no reason.
Yeah.
So
because Ben McAdoo's mustache was, blowing in the breeze, and he decided to bench his quarterback in order to start Geno Smith.
I didn't realize how much Eli Manning meant to the New York fans.
Yeah.
Because there was a revolt once it happened. I mean, the man won 2 Super Bowls, and he has had some MVP quality seasons, but he's had more average seasons than anything.
The irony of that is, Steve, the fans hate him at the same time because it's New York. The fans will love him and they hate him at the same time because that's what New Yorkers do. I was in New York. You know what happens when I go around my family in New York? It's a lot of everybody yelling at each other how much it's all really rooted in love. All the yelling is rooted in love. But you're such a disappointment. That's what it is.
But I also think that what it is, because you said it, like a lot of people hate Eli. I mean, a lot of people can't stand Eli. The issue is not, the fact that they benched him. It's the fact that the head coach sucks, and the fact that he benched him the way he benched him. So now that's why you got so much support for Eli, because it's like, we wanted you gone, but we ain't want it to happen this way. So now they start sticking up for Eli. But in the end, they
it would have been one thing. I think it would have been one thing if they had benched Eli for like a first-round rookie.
Well, even
but they benched him for
Davis
Geno
Webb,
Smith,
who's a third-round rookie, I could understand it. You want to see what a rookie
but they
has.
benched him for Geno Smith, and we know who Geno Smith is,
right.
and it's not a starting NFL quarterback, and nobody needs to see more of Geno to know that.
Geno Smith shouldn't even be starting in Vince McMahon's new XFL thing he's trying to do.
I don't know about that, but
yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a big mess.
I can't wait.
But I didn't understand it, and
no one did.
What can you
Literally
say? But,
nobody understood it, Steve.
And that's why they were, that's why they changed it, and that's why the quarterback's going to, or the coach is going to be gone next year.
Well, he is gone.
But he, yeah.
I mean, McAdoo's gone. But that's why they fired him, and it's Spagnuolo now.
True. Yeah.
Who?
You're right.
Remember when we were all dying for Steve Spagnuolo to be the Redskins coach?
I was never dying for Steve Spagnuolo to be the
general fan
coach.
base was really fired up on him, and he wouldn't even come in an interview, and we got Jim Zorn.
Yeah.
Oh, back
yeah,
then,
well.
okay. I don't remember. I don't think I wanted anybody, honestly, but Jim Fossil. I think I was cool with him.
You were the guy who wanted Jim Fossil. Jim Fossil, I was violently against.
Well, the reason why I was probably cool with Jim Fossil is because of all the other names that was mentioned. I did not want Steve. I think Jim Zorn came out the cut. Like, I didn't even expect him. I think he came in as the offensive coordinator, and I was like, okay.
Fossil. He was who Fossil picked to be the offensive coordinator, and then they
hired him first. And then didn't hire Fossil, and then they realized that they had nobody who wanted to be the head coach, and so they had no choice but to promote Jim Zorn.
Right.
Yeah, so, basically that's how I looked at it. I was like, okay, well, Fossil I'm cool with. I wrapped my head around the idea when I kept hearing his name. I was cool with that, but I didn't want Spagnuolo. But, I think that was it. I don't even remember any other candidates because of the fact that I knew so many people didn't want the job. So...
that might be a fun off-season topic. Other guys who almost were coaches.
Oh, God.
Boy, that was terrible.
What's interesting in this game is that, according to Spagnuolo, we may see Davis Webb.
Right.
Because they want to get Davis Webb some playing time and some snaps, and so it's entirely possible that, particularly if this game gets out of hand one way or another, that Eli's going to sit and we're going to see Davis Webb do mop-up duty in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting. I don't hope for this, but we might very well see Davis Webb versus Colt McCoy in the fourth quarter of this game.
Oh,
if it's lopsided one way or the other.
I'm thinking anybody outside of Mr. and Mrs. Webb probably doesn't know much about Davis Webb's ability as a quarterback.
Well, he played at Texas Tech, and you know how those people get, Steve.
Well... Don't even get me started on Texas Tech quarterbacks. You know how I feel about Texas Tech quarterbacks.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of why I brought it up.
Yeah, I know. It's you know what? My voice is too ragged right now to get me on a rant. I'm gonna let it go.
All right, yeah. Well, we said enough about Davis Webb. Basically, we don't know who he is, and we'll find out probably on Sunday exactly who Davis Webb is and if he has anything to him. However, there was more entertaining story coming out of New York. The Eli Apple debacle.
Yeah.
Basically, Landon Collins came on radio, and you can probably explain it, Alex, going deep into it. But Landon Collins has some things to say about him.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just read what Landon Collins said. And I don't know if you guys have heard the quote.
Well, you got to do Eli Apple's response to it too. It's just great. It's you can't make this.
Yeah,
stuff
I don't
up.
actually know if I have his response, but I highlighted what Collins initially said, and what he said is this was, I believe, a post game. He wrote that there's only one corner who needs to grow up, and we all know who that is. That would be the only person I would change out of the secondary group. Besides the other two guys, and he was referring to Rogers, Cromartie, and Jenkins. I love those two. They play hard. I love what they do. That first pick, he's a cancer. And then, okay, thanks for sending that to me, Steve. Let me read what Steve says was Eli Apple's response. And his response was, I got to take a S. And since we're trying not to curse, I'm going to say it rhymes with hit. So
the reporters asked Eli, do you have a response to what Landon Collins said? And that was his response. I got to take a time.
Right. That's the more polite way to say it. Yeah. Which I guess was what he was doing on the field? Or was it off the field?
Well, the crazy part about this, the story got worse, actually, because one of Eli Apple's family members came out and said the real problem in this family is the mother.
Right.
And I can't remember, does anybody know her? I can't remember her first name.
I don't remember her first name, but I know she's written some
Apple.
really negative stuff about the team and published it.
Well, and she's kind of a media personality of sorts. She was on Fox Sports for a while, I think, after her son got drafted. But this family member came out and said she's actually the real problem. She's isolated Eli. Mm-hmm. She's taken over his money. She's the cancer in the family. And so all this dirty laundry is getting aired.
His mom's also having brain surgery right now, I heard. There's some weird stuff going on there.
I think it happened earlier this year. I think she,
okay.
Cause from what I understand, she was doing ESPN this week or last week, something like that.
Gotcha.
Well, and that family member alleged that there was infidelity somehow, committed by her, and I guess Eli. There was a man that's Eli's stepfather that she's apparently cheating on, and it's like drama in New York in the Apple family, which is funny. But the end result of all this is that Eli Apple's been suspended for this week.
Yep.
This week's game, so we're not going to see Eli Apple on the field. And quite frankly, I don't know how to feel about it. It may be not necessarily good that he's not playing.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that helps or hurts us. I do know Landon Collins went on IR too, didn't he? So
yes, and Landon Collins went on IR.
That definitely helps us. I mean, that's probably their best player on defense going off the field for this game.
At least we don't have this nonsense going on. At least we don't have players calling each other cancerous. At least we don't have players talking about their bathroom habits, to reporters. And at least we don't have a mother who's stirring up all kinds of problems. Hopefully, this is what my point was earlier. Hopefully we've graduated from this kind of nonsense.
And I agree with you there. I think we got a little close in the losing streak, a couple weeks back when Swearinger was you remember he was coming out after games saying we weren't practicing hard enough. And Norman said one or two things about, loser mentality, and he doesn't like seeing it. But, the last two wins kind of right away, all that talk quieted down. And, I mean, now you can't really say, the losing, saying, hey, we need to work harder. That's not the same as just bad-mouthing another player, right? I mean, part of me wonders if what Swearinger was saying as a public comment was just him trying to light a fire under his own team's butt,
I think Swearinger's comment was just the heat of the moment.
Sure.
Heat of the battle. He was frustrated, and that was it.
Yeah, could have been that too.
Emotional right after the game, so I mean, he probably felt that way, based on the way they was playing, and then right after the game, you how much y'all lost by, and you a little pissed off, and some things that you've been trying to say to certain people. Clearly the message didn't reach, so you say something publicly, but it's not direct. It's a general comment, but it's the person who he's talking to knows that he's talking to him.
Right.
So, I don't think we're anywhere near close to the New York Giants situation. That is frustrating. Excuse me. That is frustration for sure. On parts of DJ Swearinger and what Josh Norman said. But at the same time, I don't think we're anywhere near that. There is no scenario in which we've gotten close to, people saying that we have cancers in the locker room. And I can't say, oh, look, that's good, because I mean, it's a good sign, but it's not necessarily like, I'm not using that to prop us up, because we still have some things to work on the football field. Mm-hmm. However, Off the field, we're doing just fine. And
Yeah.
that's something that the Giants have been dealing with all season with Eli. And personally, I don't know Eli Apple, excuse me. But
Right.
I just don't know. I don't know what their situation is moving forward either. Honestly, after the season.
Well, you know what's interesting from a contract standpoint is that now that they've suspended him, the player contract says that one of the default provisions is conduct detrimental to the team. And so what they can actually do if they want to get rid of Eli, now that they suspended him for that very thing, is they can default him on his contract, which will get him out of paying the guaranteed money, because all first-round contracts are 100% guaranteed, and there's 2 years left on it. He's got $4.3 million left on the contract. And so what the Giants could actually do now that they've suspended him for conduct detrimental is default him and then cut him without having to pay the guarantees and without having the cap hit for the guaranteed money. That's the effect of this.
Yeah, okay. So, but basically, if they wanted to, though, they can keep him, and they could just keep the guaranteed money, though, too, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they could just keep him in, yes. But if they want to get rid of him, they just figured out a way to do it.
All right, so, I mean, now that we know, it's kind of crazy that he put himself in this situation. And I think the wild thing is, and just to be fair for Eli, we really don't know his side of the story either. I mean, he did say he got to take a dump.
Yeah, he did do that.
He did say that. So it sounds like
not exactly the most mature thing. In the world.
So
but how old is he? I mean,
20,
he's not
like 23, 22, something like that. 24,
Yeah.
one of those. So it does sound like he is, he's clearly immature. But do we really know the full story?
No,
I do
the
know
stuff
one
about
thing
his
for
mom
sure.
is crazy. You have to admit that.
Yeah.
Well, it also needs to be said that Landon Collins did apologize today. Whether or not the team made him do it, I don't know. But he did come out today, Wednesday, and apologize for saying all that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing's for sure, though, you do have to be pissed off to come out in the public and say something like that about your teammate. you gotta be some type of pissed off to say that about your teammate. So that's actually worth noting as well in terms of that entire situation.
Yeah.
All right, so besides all the off the field nonsense and these farewell tours, the two quarterbacks, the two likely farewell tours, there's a game to be played on Sunday. And Steve, I'm pretty sure you got the Redskins trivia to knock out. So let's go ahead and let me get my W since I don't never lose.
There's a bunch of we get these from the press kit that the Redskins always send out, and usually the questions I think are easy, you guys never get, and then the ones that I think are hard, somebody gets them. So I'm just gonna throw some stuff out here.
Do it.
That I thought was interesting. This isn't a trivia question. I'd just like to point out that Cousins has 27 touchdowns on the season. There is only one other passer in team history that has a 30 touchdown season, which Cousins could get to if he has 3 more touchdown passes against the Giants. Who is the other quarterback who has thrown at least 30 touchdown passes in a
There's
season?
only one other on the team. That actually surprises me.
For the Redskins.
Yeah.
For the
That's what I
Redskins.
meant. But I'm surprised that
There's one.
it's not more, because you would think that Rippon would have done it, Sonny would have done it at least. But
Well, pick one. There's one. Who do you think it is?
Schrader.
No, not Schrader.
All right, well, I got
I
two
guess
turns.
I'm going to go Rippon just because of that 91 offense.
Nope, it was Sonny in 1967.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
31 passes in 1967.
You know what's crazy? I said the first thing I said when Alex said Sonny, he mentioned Sonny the first time. I said it can't be Sonny. They ain't throw it too much back then. That's the first thing I said when I heard Sonny. And lo and behold,
Sure.
it was him.
Well, you got to remember, Sonny was on like one of the first aired out offenses in the NFL's history. Mostly because we had such a bad team that they had to throw 5,000 yards or so, try to get to 5,000 yards to keep up.
Yeah.
Here's the only other trivia question I'm going to throw out there because we do have to preview this
Yeah.
game. Okay. Mark Mosley, Chip Lowmiller, Sean Sweesham, Justin Hopkins. Which one of those players do you think has the highest field goal percentage?
In their career,
As a Redskin.
I'm going to say Sean Sweesham. Or no,
What was the
wait.
choices again?
No, I was thinking Kai Forbath when I said
Mark
Sean
Mosley.
Sleetham.
Mark Mosley, who was on the Golden Era
Right.
teams. Chip Lowmiller, Sean Sweesham, and Dustin
It's going to be
Hopkins.
Hopkins because kickers just have a higher percentage these days.
Yeah, I'm sticking
What
with
do you
Hopkins.
think? Hopkins? Yeah, it's Hopkins. And, because I bring this up because there was a crowd of people out there who thought they should have kept Nick Young, and, I like Nick Young and everything. But Dustin
Nick Rose, you getting your
is
Lakers,
Nick Rose.
Lakers up there, man.
Yeah, you're getting the Lakers on your brain.
Even though Nick plays for.
Oh, did I say-
You said Nick Young.
Golden State.
Oh, I said Nick Young. I'm sorry. I meant Nick Rose. Yeah. Sorry.
All that
yeah.
NyQuil you're taking.
I didn't mean Nick Young. But there was a crowd of people out there who thought Nick Rose had done enough to earn the job. Well, you know what? Dustin Hopkins has been almost an 85% kicker
Right.
in the season since he's been here, which is better than Mosley by a lot. Mosley was 66%. Chip Lowmiller, 71%. Even Sean Sweesham, who was a pretty good kicker, only was at 80%. So, for those of you who are just so casual and willing to get rid of Dustin Hopkins, think twice
No,
about
Hopkins
it.
is
'cause he
fine.
actually
I
is a good
liked
kicker.
Rose too. Don't get me wrong. I would have brought him in as a
I hope they
training
still
camp
bring him
battle,
in next
but
year.
yeah,
They ought to. They ought to have some competition for sure. What's funny is Nick Rose kind of is Dustin Hopkins.
yeah, they're very similar, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. Yeah.
All right, so
So anyway, do we want to preview?
Yeah, let's get through this real
Do we have
quick.
to?
yeah, it'll be quick, y'all. I promise. So look, let's go ahead and talk about the Redskins offense. Seeing as how the Giants defense had some things going. Well,
Doesn't have a
basically
lot of
both
things
sides
going,
them,
really.
They got things going for them. So, what do we expect mostly out of the Redskins offense and against matching up against the Giants defense?
I kind of said it earlier, but I'll repeat it. I think that this is a game where Kirk could air it out and easily, if he's on his A game, this could be his best game of the year, and that'd be a great way to end his career with the Redskins potentially.
If I told you that a defense was 31st in the NFL in passing yards and 28th in the NFL in rushing yards,
You'd think it's the Redskins.
28th in passing yards per attempt, and 19th in rushing yards per attempt. If you told me that, I would say let's pass the ball, because the Redskins don't run the ball very well. Samaje Perine is hurt on top of that, and he's not very good even when he's healthy. At least this year he's not. So the Giants' defense is terrible. There are no redeeming qualities about the Giants'
Right,
defense.
and they've only gotten worse. These with we talked about Apple being out and Collins
they just
being
lost
out.
They just lost half their starting secondary in like that. And so I think the Redskins could air it out against this team. The Giants' opposing quarterbacks have an average rating of 98.6.
That's ridiculously good.
Which is like a Pro Bowl level quarterback. So I think, and on top of that, they're also terrible in sacks. Jason Pierre-Paul, Mr. He of 2.5 fingers, is the leading sacker at only 7.5 sacks this year. They're 30th NFL in sacks. They've only had 10 interceptions on the season. This just isn't a very good defense. I think the Redskins have plenty of opportunity, even in their injured state, to really move the ball against the Giants, and they really ought to do well. That having been said, of course, it is the Redskins Giants, and we've seen crazy things happen.
Right.
Just in these
We do know that the Maras seem to push their team to play the Redskins hard. There was that weird story of how they've always said this is their rivalry that they care
That's what
about.
they said?
That the Mara family's always viewed the Redskins Giants as a rival.
I've never heard that. Before.
That's like a thing. It goes back to like the 30s, apparently.
To me, my hatred of Wellington Mara and John Mara stems back to the bogus, utterly nonsensical cap penalty from.
Oh, sure, I get that.
4 years ago.
But apparently the Maras have always viewed this as a major rival. You would have thought that it was Giants Eagles, but anyway. So I think they'll get up for the game. I don't expect the Giants to roll over.
I just don't think they have the talent. They may get up for it, but this is a team.
Yeah.
This is a game the Redskins can win, and it's a game that the Redskins should win. Even though, yes, it is in New York or New Jersey rather. There's no reason why the Washington Redskins can't score enough points against this defense to win the game.
By the way, driving by that stadium on Monday night like I did, that's why I don't want the stadium in D.C. put out further in the burbs. That thing is like just surrounded by swampland. There's literally nothing there. It's awful.
I mean,
it's a terrible stadium, even though it looks nice.
It's a $1 billion thing there. It's not. It's not an inexpensive proposition.
Yeah. Well, it's tacky.
And where else in New York are you going to build a stadium?
Yeah, it's the hard part in New York.
You're going to plow down half of Manhattan to build a stadium?
No, not Manhattan. Maybe the Bronx.
Yeah, just destroy the Bronx. They don't need the Bronx.
Build it where the Yankee Stadium used to be.
It's right across the street from the new Yankee
that's
Stadium.
where I would have put it.
Okay. Anyway, Jamal, I don't know if you have any great insight into defense. To me, if you just look at the rankings, because I have our preview in front of us, 29th in points, 32nd in total yards, 32nd in yards per game, 28th in yards per play, 31st in passing yards, 28th in rushing yards, ranked 26th in third down conversions. The only thing that they're even mediocre at is red zone defense. 53.85% red zone defense. Good for 18th in the NFL. So that's literally the only number that's worth a darn in which they are semi-decent at is red zone defense.
Well, I mean, for me personally, I don't know what to expect, seeing as how there's two teams. Overall, I don't really know what to expect because there are two teams who aren't really in the playoff battle.
Nothing
however,
to play
we
for.
do know that the Giants are in a situation where we both have to evaluate guys. So the thing with the Redskins, and we struggled the first game, we picked it up in the third quarter. But the thing is with the Redskins, we still struggled offensively to run the ball against the Giants. Until the third quarter, like I just said, we picked it up. But I think that trend will continue. For some reason, we failed to move to control the line of scrimmage. So I just expect this game to be somewhat the same in terms of the front seven, and then the offensive line for us. I can't say. They may try to air it out with Kirk, like you guys suggested, but I don't know if it's going to hold up well, especially with Trent Williams on the sidelines this game. Sure. You don't really know what to expect. They may try to, obviously, and we have the players. Josh Dotson is going to be. We targeted him 13, 14 times last week. I'm pretty sure the number
13 is what the official count is.
The volume will be high again this week. Same thing with Crowder and Ryan Grant. So the volumes will be high for these guys. But will it look better this week? And that's a bigger question. But I do think we still try to stick with the run game. May struggle again. Won't look as it may not look as good as the I don't know what week it was, but the last time we played them. However, I do think we try to run it a little bit more.
So week 13, week 12.
Week 12. So I mean, we'll see, but I do think we try to run it, try to keep the same game plan, but we may take a little bit more of a aggressive nature when we do drop back to pass.
Yeah. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is that the 2017 Redskins cannot effectively run the ball.
No.
They just can't. And fortunately, we have a team here that gives up a ton of yards and a ton of yards in the air. The Giants defense also is pretty decent in completion percentage. They're at 62.4% completion percentage for opposing quarterbacks, which isn't awful. So there's one more number in which they are at least mediocre. Excuse me, but these guys have got, they've got a lot of problems, and like we mentioned before, now they're missing their all-pro level safety, and they're missing Eli Apple, for better or for worse. Offensively, are we ready to go to offense?
Let's switch it up.
About this. I like to point out that the Giants' offense has passed the ball more than any other team in the NFL. They've had 580 pass attempts on the season, which is first. in the NFL, and they have only run the ball 350 times, which is 28th in the NFL. So they have a tremendous run-pass balance problem. The reason is they're an awful running team. They're not quite as awful as we are, but they're down there with us.
But we're at least running the ball more evenly than that.
Yeah, but they're more successful at it than we are. In terms of something like yards
per play kind of thing.
Yeah. The Redskins' offense is at 3.6 yards per attempt. The Giants are at 3.7 yards per attempt. So, I mean, they're slightly better. They've got Orleans Darkwa, who I've always thought is underrated. I said that on the last show. I think he's a halfway decent running back. He just doesn't have a lot to work with. But we're going to see the Eli Manning show and then the Davis Webb show at some point. They're just going to air it out. Ingram, tight ends are the bane of the Redskins' existence. And we're going to see a lot of Ingram. He's the primary target this year with Beckham out, and the Giants have got like 5 receivers on IR right this year. So Ingram is the target. He's had 115 targets on the year. It's going to be the Manning to Ingram show.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. You said, how many targets does he have on the year? Yeah, 115.
Wow.
And
that's
how
a
many
lot for a
catches?
tight end.
Yeah, exactly. That's why. How many catches does he have? 64.
So about 50%.
He's the Odell while Odell's on IR, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's fair. I do think we won't have an issue stopping the run against these guys. It's more so similar to who was the team we played before Denver?
Yeah.
Cardinals.
Arizona.
Thank you. Cardinals did end up getting over 100. I don't even know how, but it didn't look like it. They had a lot of rushes. But I don't think they're gonna. The Giants are gonna try to run it, but it's more so to the effect that our defensive line, our front seven is able to handle an offensive line like the New York Giants. It's not very impressive. It's not solid at all. Our front seven will do fine, which will also put Eli Manning in positions where when he does drop back to pass, it'll look as similar. I think the interior pass rusher and outside pass rushers and Kerrigan and Preston Smith and Junior Gillette, who is starting to get a lot more playing time these last few weeks. I think they'll have opportunities to make plays on the quarterback and force turnovers. And we've been seeing that the last 2 weeks with inept offensive line and subpar quarterback play. I think that trend continues. And just imagine if we won. I hate doing this. I really do. Just imagine if we won either at least the San Diego game and one of the Vikings or Saints.
Don't go
game.
Here, man.
Yeah, you don't want to go back and.
I know. I said I hate doing it, but I'm just saying, like, it just shows you the type of schedule that we had because we knew these games were coming. We knew that the Giants.
Well, it's funny you say that, and I'd like to bring up because Redskins. This is another blurb out of the Redskins media package. Even despite these past couple games that have been a little easier, the Redskins still, through the final week of the season, have had the toughest schedule in the league.
Yeah.
Even despite playing the Cardinals and the Broncos. In terms of opponents' win percentage, the Redskins' schedule is still the toughest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I believe it. It's just the fact that it's just the quality of opponents right now. It makes it seem like it's a little easier. Like, you're very confident heading into this game if you're a Redskins fan. The players probably and coaches treat this like a regular game, like any other game. They game plan for it, and they're trying to get a W. But as a fan, you have a little bit more confidence in getting a W this week because of the fact that you know how the Redskins play against inept offenses. It's been shown throughout this season. So yeah, I don't expect much from the Giants offense. I think they'll continue to struggle like they did the week 12 when we played them initially.
Yep, I think that you're right on. I think that our defense should match up with them very well. So I'm not too worried in the end.
Yeah, I mean, the X factor is that these games are always tough, and it is in the Meadowlands. It's not a home game, so you never know. But you guys just want to go ahead and do predictions?
One thing.
Thinking
We
about
got
it?
one thing. We got one thing to do, and we can move on to the predictions. Who do you have? What's more likely, 100-yard game from Josh Doxson or a 100-yard game from Ryan Grant? Both came close recently. One against New Orleans, one against the Broncos. Both of them got 85 plus yards, but didn't top 100. Do one of them get 100 this week?
I'm gonna say it's more like you're gonna be shocked, Jamal, but I'm gonna say it's more likely that Josh Doxson is gonna get 100 yards. And the reason I say that is not because it's not out of Ryan Grant hate. It's that if the Cousins to Doxson connection gets rolling, and a couple of these long 50-50 balls get caught, he can get there a lot easier. Whereas that's not really Ryan Grant's game. Grant's got to have a bunch of a bunch of receptions pile up to get to 100 yards, whereas Doxson can do it in a couple catches if they kind of get rolling. So I'm going to say Doxson.
I would tend to agree, just because we don't send Grant on the deep 50-yard passes much, and I think that's where the advantage is going to come in when with Collins out. Your big plays are going to come against that safety spot. So, who's going to get that matchup the most? That'll be who gets the 100-yard game.
Okay. I roll with Doxson myself too.
I think there's a potential for all the receivers to have a good final game here, though.
Yeah, I agree. It's really going to be based off that pass protection. They did a good job last week though against Von Miller and company. I don't think they gave up a sack. He did get hit a lot, but it will be based on this pass protection. Will they be able to take the shots down the field? And will they be able to have enough protection for him to drop back in and thoroughly make his plant, read, and throw? So we'll see. So let's go ahead and get to the predictions. I just wanted to ask that, see how you guys feel.
I think it's even more likely, honestly, because, remember also that Robert Davis has a concussion. He's in concussion protocol. So we don't know if he's even going to play. Brian Quick had an illness, didn't practice Wednesday at all. Maurice Harris has a back problem, so and he was limited. So, in terms of healthy receivers, you're down to Crowder and Doxson and Grant. Grant has an ankle problem, but I think he's fine.
Trooper,
so
he
we're really talking.
Yeah, he'll play through that.
On the team, so he'll play through it.
I don't know if Ryan Grant's family is paying you money, Jamal. If you're getting a kickback on the side or what, it's got to be
my
something.
part-time job, man.
We got to do an Ancestry.com on you two to see if you're related.
Hey, you never know, man. My family's from the South, so. Hey. But no, it's all fun and games. But so let's go ahead and get these predictions out of the way. Steve, I'll say you for last, buddy. Alex, what you got going on?
Okay, I will. I think this is I think we're going to kind of finish on the high note here. Redskins are going to win this one with a kind of a shootout. I actually predict in this one. I think it's going to be something like 33-24 Redskins win.
Okay. So as much as I feel that the Redskins will struggle against the Giants defense up front, I do think they find a way to put up points, and I do think they find a way to manage. Whether it's we ain't got to get to the X's and O's, but I do think they find a way to manage. With that being said, I do think the Redskins find a way to put up 27 points at least, and I see probably a 27 to 13 game, or maybe 30 to 13. Redskins. This one's probably not going to be close.
Okay.
Maybe you and I are related, Jamal, somehow, because I actually had that exact same thought. I think the Redskins are going to put it all together. I think the Giants are done. I think they've quit. And I was really in my head truly thinking 30 to 13 as the final score. So I'm going to stick with that. I think the Redskins are going to pile on. They're going to get their third victory in a row.
Yeah, definitely. All right. This was a good discussion, man. I appreciate you guys for hopping on the show with me as the
your first. This was your first time hosting, Jamal, and you did a good job. So
yes, the first host
kudos.
I host. I had a lot of practice with the All 32.
That's true.
But also, I'm looking forward to bringing that with you guys. I guess when the wild card week starts next week. So Yeah,
Yep.
so I'm looking forward to talking football, see what we got going on with the NFL at large. So I enjoyed it. I know you guys. This ain't nothing new. So again, do we got any parting words before we leave?
My parting word is I'm very sorry my voice is so ragged, and to the extent Alex can't edit out my coughing problem, I'm apologize to you guys.
Well, so you're apologizing really just to me because I have to do a lot more work.
Yeah, sorry.
Basically,
Sorry,
It was
Alex.
a public apology.
I tried to mute it, and I think I hit the wrong button.
That's all right. I'll figure it out.
So.
I just want to show you something cool my brother got me for a Christmas gift. He found this vintage Redskins, I guess it's a balaclava kind of thing. Like a ski mask.
Oh, I was about to say, it looked like a ski mask, Alex.
Yeah. Balaclava, I think, is...
Yeah, I'm a simple guy. You gotta use simple words.
I think that's a
around
military term, Steve. You should have known that one.
What?
I don't.
Well, it should be fun to wear, especially when we get these random snow days. I know it's coming, but Washington always get the random snow days, and they're pretty heavy.
My cool Christmas gift is I got a drone.
Oh, that is kind of
And
cool.
so all I can say is to the woman who sunbathes is topless behind me, look out, because now I have a drone and an ability to take pictures.
Oh my goodness. Well, look, just don't get caught, all right? Because you do a lot for this show and you do a lot for the Hog Style. So if you get caught, buddy, we'll go ahead and get a GoFundMe so we can get your bail money in.
Well, the problem is if
Yeah,
Steve
thank
gets
you.
arrested, he's our lawyer, and who else is going to take care of anything?
Yeah, I know. I appreciate the sentiment. I'll just have to be sure and not get caught.
Just like make sure it flies silent so nobody can hear it.
Yeah, there you go. Because they're not Redskin fans anyway, so they're probably not listening.
Basically. But look, I didn't get much. Just since we're doing all this, I just got my Macy's bill paid off, and I got some clothing and stuff like that for work. So it was a good amount of money on my Macy's bill, so I'm glad it was paid off. Don't have to worry about that. So yeah, I appreciate you all for listening. We will catch you guys Sunday afternoon, well, Monday morning, really. So thanks for listening.
Later.